Her true story from California. On my 70th birthday, I ate alone. They used my retirement to toast in the Maldives, paid for with my retirement money. On my 70th birthday, I sat at the kitchen table with a can of soup. No phone calls, no visitors, just me, and a photo on my screen. My son and his wife raising champagne flutes in the Maldives, paid for with my money, my silence, my mistake. It wasn't some miscommunication. It wasn't a travel surprise or a forgotten date. They knew it was my birthday. I watched the time zones roll across their stories. Sunrise yoga, oceanside brunch, cocktails in a private cabana. While I sat alone in a house I cleaned but didn't own, in a room they called her space, like I was a tenant, not a mother. The soup was cold by the time I finished half. I didn't feel hungry anymore. Not for food, at least. They had said it was temporary. "We'll just move some of your retirement into our joint account, Mum. It'll help us streamline bills, and we can book that medical checkup for you sooner." I remember nodding. I remember trusting them. I remember the way Rebecca smiled as she took the folder of documents from my lap, like I was handing over a casserole dish, not my life's savings. 3 months passed. No checkup, no reimbursement, no conversation, just silence. And apparently a trip to paradise. I didn't tell anyone. Who would I tell? My old friends were dead or tucked away in memory care units. My sister had passed 2 years prior. My bridge partner broke her hip and moved to Arizona. I had people on my contact list, but not one I could call without apologizing for the hour or the intrusion. So I sat in that kitchen and scrubbed the already clean counters. I wiped smudges from the fridge they never noticed. I lined up Rebecca's oat milk and almond creamer so the labels faced forward. That's what she liked. Order. Me. I used to like company. Laughter. Conversations that lasted through coffee and into warm pie. But they had removed that, like wallpaper too faded to match the room. A month ago, she told me not to bake anymore. "The sugar isn't good for Lily, and the smell lingers, Marion." Not Mom. Never Mom. Just Marion, like I was the lady next door who overstayed her welcome. And still I stayed, because the room was warm, and they said they loved me. And I thought this, the little sacrifices, was just part of aging. Until my birthday came, and the house was silent, and I was not invited. I checked the mailbox around 5 p.m. Not even a card. Then I checked my bank app. The retirement fund was down $1,400. There was a transaction to a resort I recognized from their photos. The one with the floating breakfasts and rose petal bedsheets. The one they tagged with "once in a lifetime." It was my lifetime. I sat back down, not because I was tired, but because I felt something shift inside me. Not a crack, a clean, sharp cut. The kind that doesn't bleed until later. I had given them my money, my trust, my space, my name. And now they had taken my celebration too. That was the last thing they would take. If you've ever watched your family toast joy with money you saved in silence, if you've ever sat through a birthday where the only candle was the microwave light, this is your story too. Subscribe to Grandma True Stories, where the women they underestimated remember everything. They hadn't stolen it all at once. That's the part no one tells you. How the taking comes slowly, politely, even lovingly. First, they help with your passwords. Then they suggest merging accounts for ease. They call it care, concern, streamlining. And you, being grateful not to be alone, let them. I let them. It started with the debit card. "Let's just link your retirement to our household account, Mum. That way we can keep track of expenses and help cover anything unexpected." Rebecca was always so calm, so persuasive. Her tone had that soft, professional smoothness, the one that makes you feel silly for asking questions. Matt barely spoke during those conversations, just nodded. He had always let his wife take the lead. Even when he was a boy, he'd look to me for permission to speak. And now, at 42, he looked to her. They said it would just be temporary. They said it would help me. So I signed. It was a Thursday. I remember because I had just finished baking banana bread, the last time I was allowed to make anything without checking first. Rebecca had complimented it, but asked that next time I use less butter. Lily was counting calories. Lily is 12. After I handed over the folder, bank statements, retirement account, health records, Rebecca smiled like I'd just done something brave. "You won't regret this, Marion," she said, not "thank you." Just that. Like I had signed up for a subscription box, not given away the keys to my future. A week later, they came home with new luggage. "Oh, it was on sale," Rebecca chirped. "We're thinking of taking a little family getaway next month. Just a recharge." She said it like she was describing vitamins. Something small, routine. That was the beginning. They stopped showing me the statements. My old login didn't work anymore. "We're managing it now," Matt said, once, while tying his shoelaces. He didn't look up. He hadn't really looked at me in months. I told myself I was overreacting, that it was okay. I had food, a roof, a chair in the corner of their living room where I could sit quietly during commercials. What more could I ask for? But every time I reached for my wallet, I hesitated. Would it bounce? Was there anything left? I stopped buying gifts. I stopped buying anything. I clipped coupons for toothpaste and switched to cheaper tea. I didn't ask for a thing. Then one day, I saw Lily wearing a designer sweatshirt, the kind that costs more than my monthly budget. And I knew. I was funding their lifestyle. With the savings I built over decades of boiled dinners and skipped vacations, double shifts, and denied pleasures, I was financing their yoga retreats, meal kits, and silk pillowcases. And they still told me I should cut back. At first, I made small noises of resistance. Maybe I could get a printout of the account? Would it help if I handled some bills? But Rebecca brushed them aside like lint. "Don't worry about that, Marion." Always Marion. Always with that smile. Matt never said a word, so I fell silent again, not out of weakness, but because I needed to listen, really listen. To the way Lily rolled her eyes when I asked her to take her plate to the sink. To the way Rebecca said, "We'll handle it," whenever I opened a drawer that used to hold my name. To the way Matt, my son, didn't flinch when they removed my rocking chair from the porch because it didn't match the aesthetic. And in that silence, I started keeping my own records. I wrote down every time they used the word burden, every sigh, every passive-aggressive smile, every purchase that wasn't mine but came from the account with my name. I wasn't angry yet, not then. But I was done pretending I was lucky to be ignored in a home I helped pay for. Before all this, I was someone. Not famous, not remarkable, just steady. I was the woman who balanced paychecks on paper napkins, who clipped coupons so her son could have new cleats instead of hand-me-downs, who stayed late at the clinic reception desk so the night staff could eat dinner uninterrupted. I was the woman who saved, every month, a little. Sometimes only a handful of dollars, sometimes more. I had no employer-sponsored plan, no inheritance, just a battered folder labeled "Someday." In it, small certificates, a savings bond my sister gifted me once, account printouts from a credit union, handwritten lists. I didn't take vacations, not even weekend trips. The closest I came was the year Matt graduated college, and we stayed in a roadside motel for one night. I remember the sheets were scratchy. He laughed, said it felt like camping. He had no idea I paid for that room by skipping my prescriptions the month before. But I didn't regret it. Mothers never do, not at first. The folder grew thicker with time. When my husband died, I used part of the life insurance to pay off our house. The rest went into someday. When the factory closed, I picked up part-time work filing at a dentist's office and stashed every leftover dime into the same envelope. It became a comfort, not money, exactly, but evidence that I had done something right, that I had built something, even if it was quiet and small and mostly invisible. I never thought it would become someone else's passport to paradise. And yet, there they were, posting spa photos, drone shots of private islands, cocktail menus. Meanwhile, I was afraid to buy extra eggs. Rebecca once asked if I'd considered downsizing. She meant selling the old house, the one Matt grew up in, the one I still owned, rented out to a quiet couple with a toddler. You could move into something simpler, she said. Maybe a retirement condo. But it wasn't about helping me. It was about control. That house, that tiny 2-bedroom near the park, was the last thing with my name on it. The one asset I'd never handed over. The one place that hadn't been invaded by their rules, their voice, their furniture. So I smiled and said, maybe someday, and tucked the deed back into my drawer. They never asked about it again. They thought I had nothing left, that because I lived in their guest room, I owed them, that because I was quiet, I was powerless, that because I didn't protest, I didn't notice. But I did. I noticed when Rebecca bought $300 skincare and told me to stop leaving cheap lotion in the bathroom. I noticed when Matt cancelled my dental appointment because the budget's tight this month. I noticed when Lily rolled her eyes every time I coughed at the dinner table. And I especially noticed the guest list for Rebecca's 40th birthday party. Catered, photographed, posted in full glory online. Not one picture included me. Even though I ironed the tablecloths. Even though I made the floral arrangements. Even though I served wine in silence and took out the trash after. I wasn't invisible. I was eroded. Piece by piece, memory by memory, I had become less, in their eyes, and eventually in my own. Until that birthday. Until the soup. Until I realized the only person who had ever protected me was me. The first thing they took was my car. They framed it as safety. Marion, it's just not safe for you to drive anymore. Your reflexes aren't what they used to be. Rebecca said it gently, like she was offering me a blanket. Matt just nodded. Always the nod. Like agreement was easier than confrontation. I had driven for over 50 years, never so much as a speeding ticket. But one missed turn in a crowded parking lot, and they made it sound like I was a threat to public safety. The car was old, sure, but it was mine. Burgundy paint, a chipped dashboard, a cassette player that still worked if you hit it just right. They said they'd handle the paperwork. Next thing I knew, it was gone. Sold. I didn't see a cent. I asked once, quietly, over coffee, if any of the money had been saved. Rebecca sipped her matcha. It went toward the household, gas, groceries, internet. You live here too, remember? That was the first time I felt the chill. Not from her words, those were always polished, but from the message underneath. You cost us. After the car, it was the kitchen. You've had a few spills, she said one afternoon, carefully removing the apron from my hands. And I don't want you to overexert yourself. Just relax. We've got it. They didn't have it. They ordered meal kits, heated up frozen stir-fry, let Lily microwave pasta until the edges curled. But I wasn't allowed near the stove. Then my rocking chair disappeared. Then the hallway rug I brought from my house. "It's a tripping hazard," she said, folding it away like it was a dirty towel. Piece by piece, they cleared me out without boxes. I still had a room, a twin bed, a side table, a dresser they picked. My old quilt folded at the foot of the bed, though Rebecca once said it looked too busy. She bought me a grey blanket instead. It matches the aesthetic. The aesthetic was beige, silent, and spotless. There was a sign on the fridge. Quiet hours, 9 p.m. to 8 a.m. Another taped to the thermostat. 72D max. Energy mindfulness. I followed them all. I tiptoed. I whispered. One evening, I left the bathroom light on by mistake. Rebecca noticed. "It's just wasteful," she said, and smiled. It always came with a smile. I nodded. I always nodded. Until one afternoon, I came downstairs early and overheard Lily talking on speakerphone to a friend. She's like, "Just always there. It's weird." I froze. The friend laughed. "Ugh, I'd die." Lily replied, "Yeah, but like, what can we do? She has nowhere else to go." That was the moment. Not the words, the assumption that I had no options, no life, no property, no power, that I was trapped. I walked back to my room and shut the door gently. Then I opened the drawer where I kept my paperwork. The folder with the old deed, the backup copies, the receipts, the tax records. My hands trembled, not with fear, but with memory. They had forgotten who I was, but I hadn't, not anymore. They thought I'd forgotten how to read between lines, how to keep track, how to pay attention. They mistook my quiet for decline, my steadiness for confusion, my patience for permission. They had no idea I was watching everything. I knew Rebecca's grocery totals better than she did. I knew how much she spent on scented candles and collagen powder and protein bars she never finished. I knew Matt's online purchases, the ones that came in discreet boxes and disappeared into the garage before dinner. I even knew how often Lily ordered takeout from her phone, right after pushing her plate away with a dramatic sigh. I never said a word, but I noticed. I took notes. Real ones. In the back of an old day planner no one touched but me. I wrote down every unexplained charge from my retirement account. Every date, every amount, every store. There was one week where $600 disappeared, labeled as family care. That week, I had soup for dinner 3 nights in a row. I asked gently what it was. "Oh, we got a deep cleaning done," Rebecca said, without a blink. "We needed a detox. Lily's allergies were flaring." My money paid for a detox I wasn't invited to. I circled the entry in red. The next week, I tested the waters. I asked Matt if we could look over the account together. "Just for reassurance," I said. I made it sound like I was confused, like I needed him. He blinked, shifted. "Rebecca handles all that now, Mum." Then he left the room. It wasn't cruelty. It was worse. It was convenience. I had become the silence between their sentences, the muted presence, the one who stirred tea, not trouble. And yet every bill in this house came easier because of me. They never saw it that way. They saw a woman who used the hot water too long, who needed help with the laundry, who left her teacup on the wrong side of the counter. I wasn't dramatic. I didn't scream. I didn't break things. I didn't guilt them. But I had started to remember. That small house, the one they never asked about again, still stood in my name. Not theirs, not Rebecca's, mine. Bought with sweat, patched with faith, paid off one envelope at a time. They thought it was gone because I didn't talk about it. But some treasures are safest in silence. I called the tenants, a young couple. They'd been renting for 6 years. Always on time, respectful, kind. They didn't know who I was. The property manager had handled everything. But when I introduced myself, the wife said, "Oh, we're so grateful for this place. It's our first real home." Their words moved through me like a slow thaw. I had given someone a home, while living like a guest in my own life. That night, I took a pen and underlined one sentence in my planner. I don't owe them anything. And then, for the first time in years, I slept through the night. There's a difference between being quiet and being silenced. For a long time, I thought I was choosing peace. But peace doesn't taste like tension. It doesn't come with clenched teeth and swallowed words. That's not peace. That's submission dressed in a polite sweater. One morning, I found my tea mug in the trash. Not broken, not chipped, just gone. It was a blue ceramic cup with a crack down one side, sealed years ago with a bit of glue and stubbornness. It was nothing special to anyone but me. I had used it every morning since Matt left for college. I fished it out without a word. That night, I heard them through the wall. Rebecca was talking to Matt in their bedroom, voice hushed, but not enough. "She's not pulling her weight. I'm exhausted. Every time I turn around, she's just sitting there." "She's 70, Matt said, barely audible. "And? I'm not asking her to build a house, but maybe don't leave crumbs everywhere. Maybe don't rearrange my spice rack." "I didn't rearrange it. I wiped it." "Maybe she should consider a care facility," Rebecca said, sharper now, "before things get messy." The silence that followed was worse than any insult. Matt didn't defend me. He didn't say no. He didn't even say wait. He said nothing. I sat in the dark with my blue mug, cold tea inside, and felt something in me calcify. They were preparing to move me like furniture. That weekend, I packed one bag. Not to leave. Not yet. Just to see what it felt like. 3 dresses. My planner. A copy of the deed. A photograph of Matt as a boy, holding a sparkler on the 4th of July, smiling so wide his eyes disappeared. I zipped the bag and left it in my closet. Then I went downstairs and made pancakes. No one said thank you. The following Monday, Rebecca scheduled a family meeting. Her tone was clipped, professional, the way she speaks to her yoga clients when they cancel last minute. She handed me a printout. "Assisted living options," she said. "Just ideas. We're all adjusting." Adjusting to what? I wanted to ask. Me existing. Matt sat beside her, not quite meeting my eyes. "Mum, it might be good for you. More social time. Less pressure on all of us." I looked at the paper. Prices, descriptions, photos of grey buildings with fake flowers at the entrance. I looked up. "No," I said. Rebecca blinked. "No?" she repeated, like I had mispronounced something. "No," I said again. "I'm not going anywhere. Not yet." She smiled that tight little smile. "Let's not be emotional, Marion." "I'm not," I said. "You are." And I stood up. I didn't storm. I didn't cry. I just left the room. But inside, I made a decision. They were planning a future that erased me. It was time to remind them whose name still held the past. They forgot one thing. I had done this all before. Paperwork. Appointments. Decisions that affected someone else's entire future. I had done it for my husband when he got sick. I had done it for Matt when he was born. I had done it every time something broke, burned, or fell apart. But this time, I was doing it for me. That Thursday, while they were out running errands, I took the folder from my drawer. The deed. The original sale contract. Tax receipts. Proof. The house wasn't big. 2 bedrooms, a narrow kitchen, a yard with stubborn crabgrass. But it was mine. Bought in 1991, paid off by 2007. I never borrowed against it. I never refinanced. It sat, quiet and solid, while my life kept bending to accommodate everyone else's. I called an attorney, not a stranger, a man named Paul Rivera. We had worked together decades ago, me at the front desk, him as a new associate in the firm upstairs. He still remembered me, called me Mrs. M like he used to. He didn't ask many questions, just said, "Come in tomorrow, bring everything." I did. His office smelled the same. Paper, ink, faint lemon polish. He poured me water, handed me a pen. "I want to sell it," I said. His eyebrows rose. "Are you sure?" "Yes," but quietly. "No listing signs, no open houses. I don't want them knowing until it's done." He didn't blink. "Discreet sale. Limited disclosure. We can do that." Then he looked over the documents, nodded slowly. "You've got everything. They can't touch this. Not a clause, not a loophole. It's yours, Marion. All of it." That was the first time I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. He connected me with a realtor, a woman named Elena, whose mother I remembered from church. She understood without needing the story. "They won't know," she promised. "I'll handle the showings myself. No neighbours, no flyers, just a few buyers. Pre-vetted." "Cash only," I said. "No delays." "Understood." I walked out of that office taller, not lighter, just steadier. When I got back home, Rebecca was in the kitchen, blending something green. She didn't look up. Matt was on the couch, scrolling. He glanced at me, then back at his screen. I went to my room and wrote a letter. Not to them, to myself. A reminder. You are not stuck. You are not helpless. You are not at their mercy. I slipped it into my pocket, and I waited. The next chapter wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. It just needed to be mine. The first offer came faster than I expected. Eleanor called just 2 days after the listing went out. Private, no address, by appointment only. A woman from Oregon, recently divorced, looking to start over. Cash buyer. Quiet, respectful. Wanted something small, steady, with history. She said it felt like a real home, Elena told me. The kind you don't bulldoze, the kind you grow into. That's what it was. A house with roots, mine. I approved the offer before dinner. The documents arrived by courier the next morning. I signed them at Paul's office, one line at a time. No shaking, no hesitation, just ink and breath, and the weight of 30 years moving quietly from memory to decision. We closed the deal in under 5 days. On the 6th, I moved out. I didn't pack boxes, just one suitcase, a few clothes, my toothbrush, my planner, a locket with a photo of Matt at 5, a boy with grass-stained knees and jam on his cheeks, grinning like the world would always be simple. I left a note under Rebecca's scented candle. "Don't worry about dinner." That was it. Then I walked out the back door and didn't look back. I didn't cry. I didn't even feel triumphant. What I felt was something smaller, sharper, like a splinter finally sliding free. I checked into a quiet hotel by the train station. Clean towels, no schedule, no surveillance. I watched the news without headphones. I brewed tea without commentary. I breathed. That evening, I turned my phone on. 9 missed calls, all from Matt. The 10th one came just after midnight. I let it ring. Then came the texts. "Mom, where are you? Did you leave? What's going on? Rebecca is freaking out. Please answer." And finally, "Did you sell the house?" I turned the phone off. The next morning, Paul sent confirmation. The transfer had posted. The buyer now had full title, legally binding, irrevocable. We filed a tenancy termination notice that same day, served by courier, signature required. 7 days to vacate. No negotiations, no grace. They were shocked. Rebecca called Elena, pretending to be me. tried to dispute the sale. Elena answered her like a scalpel. All documentation is verified and county filed. Miss Marian M. is the sole legal owner and has executed her rights in full capacity. This conversation is over. Click. Later that day, Matt left a voicemail. Mum, what are you doing? We live here. Are you okay? This isn't funny. Call me, please. Funny. That's what he called it. They'd used my money, silenced my presence, and planned my removal. And now, when I acted, that was funny? I put the phone face down. Outside, the city moved. People with bags, destinations, lives that still had options. And now, finally, so did I. They didn't believe it at first. They thought I'd had a lapse, a moment, that I'd wake up, apologize, undo it all. That's what people think when they've spent years training you to second-guess yourself. But I didn't undo anything. The papers had gone out, the ownership transferred, the notice served. Legally, I owed them nothing. Not a phone call, not a warning, not a goodbye. They were still in my old house. But now, they were trespassers. The next morning, the moving truck arrived. I didn't send it. The new owner did, politely, professionally, with a clipboard and a strict timeline. Matt texted again. Did you really do this? You sold it without even talking to us? Where are we supposed to go? There was no, I'm sorry. No, we understand. Just panic, just fear. Just the realization that the woman in the corner, the one who didn't do much, was the one holding the foundation they stood on. Rebecca never called. She didn't beg. She didn't explain. But I imagine her voice. Cold, tight, accusatory. She was never afraid of me. Only afraid of not controlling me. That evening, I sat on a hotel bed with a cup of mint tea and my old blue mug. I'd brought it with me. A small act of defiance. Or maybe restoration. The room was quiet in the way their house never was. No humming appliances, no footsteps overhead. Just my breath and the soft tick of a borrowed clock. I didn't feel victorious. I felt clean, like I'd finally washed off something I couldn't name. At 9:12 p.m., the intercom at the front desk buzzed. A woman in a fitted coat, sunglasses at night, a designer purse, Rebecca. She didn't ask. She demanded. I need to speak to her. This is a family emergency. The clerk called up to ask. I said no. 10 minutes later, another buzz. This time from Matt's phone. He was downstairs now too. They were both there, together, faces drawn, voices urgent. Mum, please. Just talk to us. I walked to the window, pulled the curtain aside just an inch. They looked smaller than I remembered. No aura, no shine. Just two people who had forgotten the difference between taking and earning. I didn't go down, didn't wave. Just closed the curtain again and sipped my tea. The world didn't end. It began. By the time the eviction notice expired, they had moved out. Not with grace, not with humility, with noise. Rebecca posted a photo of herself standing on the porch, my porch, lips tight, sunglasses too large, captioned, "When your own mother makes you homeless at 40, cheers to family." The comments poured in. People offered sympathy, outrage. One person even wrote, "I'd sue." But no one asked what came before. No one asked who paid for the roof above them, who paid for the yoga retreats, the skin treatments, the streaming services, the $1,000 mattress they once gifted to the household. No one asked how much silence cost. I didn't respond. I didn't read further. That's the thing about reclaiming your life. You no longer feel obligated to defend it. Matt called again that week. Not angry, not yelling, just tired. "Mum," he said, "we're staying with friends. It's temporary. I didn't know it was this bad. I didn't realize how things looked from your side. He paused. You should have said something. I closed my eyes. I did, I said. When? Every time I cooked and wasn't thanked. Every time I was told to stay out of your way. Every time you let her speak for both of you. Silence. I didn't want to lose you, he said. You didn't lose me, I answered. You gave me away. He didn't speak again. The line stayed open, breathing, waiting. Then quietly, can we fix it? I didn't answer that question, because it wasn't mine to answer. Instead, I told him the truth. You need to remember what you forgot. Which is? That I was your first home, before mortgages and islands and passwords, before your wife, before your daughter, before your opinions. There was me, and I deserved better than what you gave. The call ended not with a goodbye, but a breath, like the first inhale after nearly drowning. That night, I slept with the window cracked. The city moved in the distance, cars, voices, life. I was no longer part of their story, but I had rewritten mine. In the morning, I walked 3 blocks to a real estate office, a different one. I asked to speak with someone about a purchase. Small, clean, high floor, quiet neighbors. I wanted a place where the only rules were mine. The agent offered coffee. I declined. I already had everything I needed. I moved in on a Tuesday. It was raining, a soft, indecisive drizzle that never quite soaked the sidewalks, just glossed them over like memory. The apartment wasn't large, but it was mine. 1 bedroom, a small kitchen, windows that opened all the way, no labels on the cabinets, no thermostats with warnings, no lists on the fridge, just space, air, stillness. The first thing I unpacked was my tea mug. The second, the locket. The third, a bundle of folded documents, sealed in a zippered pouch, the deed from the sale, my updated will, my new bank statements, all under my name. No shared accounts, no co-signers, no temporary access. I boiled water, sat by the window, listened to the kettle sing, and I let the silence settle. Not as punishment, but as peace. For the first time in years, I didn't flinch at footsteps. I didn't pause before opening a cabinet. I didn't calculate how many minutes I'd used the shower. I just lived, softly, completely, like breath after a cough. My pension came in at the start of the month, untouched. My new attorney, a young woman named Sasha, sharp eyes, kind hands, had already helped me redirect everything. No one touches a dollar without your signature, she said, tapping the final form. I nodded. I signed, and that was that. A week passed, then 2. No calls, no knocks, just the quiet churn of time. I started walking again. Slow, deliberate walks through a nearby park. I watched toddlers wobble, dogs leap, leaves change. I bought a basil plant and set it on the windowsill. It leaned toward the light like it trusted it would always be there. I did small things, wiped counters, matched socks, laughed, once, loud enough to surprise myself, when I burned toast and set off the smoke alarm. No one sighed, no one scolded. I just waved the towel until it stopped and opened a window. It was glorious. But the world doesn't forget easily. On the 17th day, I got a letter. No envelope, just a folded page slipped under my door. Matt's handwriting, not printed, not typed, written. It read, "Mom, I know I don't deserve your attention, let alone your forgiveness, but I've been trying to understand. I've been reading, remembering. We found one of your old notebooks, the one with grocery lists and phone numbers, and in the back, there was a line. A mother's silence is the echo of everything she gave and never asked back. I don't know when you wrote that, but I haven't stopped thinking about it. Rebecca's staying with her sister. Lily's with her. I'm in a rental. It's quiet. Too quiet. I keep waiting for the phone to ring. I know I failed you. Not just recently. Not just during the vacation. But for years. If you never want to speak again, I understand. But if there's a version of the future where I can earn your respect back, I'll wait for that. I'll be here. I folded the letter and placed it in my drawer. Not with anger, not with grief, just with finality. Because that's what he never understood. I hadn't left to hurt him. I had left to remember myself. I didn't respond. I didn't rush to explain. I didn't soften. I let the weight of his words hang where mine had once been erased. A week later, I got a call. Unknown number. I almost let it ring. But I answered. It was Lily, 12 years old, brave in the way only children can be. Hi, Nana. I paused. Hi, sweetheart. I made banana bread. It's not as good as yours. I'm sure it's wonderful. Can I visit you sometime? She didn't say, Mum said I can't. She didn't say, Dad told me to. She just asked. Simple, sincere. And something in me, that old softness, flickered. Not forgiveness, not yet. But memory. Of her in the garden with me, hands full of soil, asking if worms had names. Of her standing on a chair to help me stir soup. Of her saying, when she was 5, Nana smells like books and cookies. I cleared my throat. Not yet, I said gently. But someday? Okay. She didn't push. She just said, I love you, and hung up. And I sat there, tea cooling beside me, the city warm outside, and I let myself feel everything. The ache, the power, the quiet, the home that no one else built for me, just me. The neighbours noticed, of course. It's impossible not to, when a family vanishes overnight and the porch plants are still in bloom. The new owner, the woman from Oregon, moved in quietly. No balloons, no paint trucks, just a slow arrival. A bookshelf here, a wind chime there, a folding chair placed deliberately on the front step, like someone waiting to feel at home. She never contacted me. She didn't need to. Her name was Diane, mid-50s, kind eyes. Elena said she'd read the sale file 3 times and called the house sacred. She said she didn't want to renovate it. Elena told me on the phone. She wanted to live with it. That meant something to me. Not because she owed me anything, but because she saw value where others only saw property. Meanwhile, Rebecca deleted the post about me, the one where she claimed I made them homeless. Probably because the comments turned. Someone must have known the truth. It doesn't take much. One neighbour, one friend, one cousin who remembers the right details. I didn't read the fallout. I didn't need to. But Eleanor forwarded a message Rebecca had sent to her office. We believe there's been a misunderstanding. This property was intended to remain in the family. Elena's reply was brief. Ownership was never shared. There is no misunderstanding. Matt stopped calling, stopped texting. I didn't know if he gave up or grew up. Maybe both. Lily sent one more message. A drawing this time. Of a house, a garden, a figure on a balcony with a cat in her lap. In purple crayon she'd written, Hope you're smiling. I hung it by my kitchen table, next to the basil, next to the photo of Matt with his sparkler. Not because I had forgiven him, but because I remembered the boy he once was, the one who used to hide notes in my pockets that read, I love you more than peanut butter. Forgiveness is a process. Memory is a mirror. I cleaned my windows that day, wiped down the glass until the world came through clearly. Then I sat, tea in hand, and opened my old notebook, the one I hadn't written in for years. I flipped past grocery lists, passwords, emergency numbers, found the page with the quiet line Matt had quoted. A mother's silence is the echo of everything she gave and never asked back. And beneath it, I wrote something new. But silence doesn't mean surrender. It means watching who shows up when you stop giving. I closed the book, and for the first time in a long time, I felt whole. He came to see me in the spring, not with confidence, not with entitlement. Just a quiet knock on the front door of the building, a paper bag in one hand, and a face that finally looked like it understood loss. Matt. I almost didn't answer, but something, maybe the way he stood, maybe the sag in his shoulders, told me this wasn't about redemption. It was about recognition. He didn't speak right away, just held out the paper bag. Banana bread, he said. Your recipe. Or my best guess. I took it. Still warm. He looked smaller up close. Older. Like someone who had slept too little and thought too much. I'm not here to fix anything, he said. I just needed to hand something back. From his coat pocket, he pulled out a notebook. Mine. The old one I thought I'd lost. Not the day planner. The other one. The one with the fabric cover and the worn spine. The one I used to write in late at night when no one was watching. I opened it. Pages filled with notes, observations, memories. And at the back, numbers. Every gift. Every payment. Every month I covered groceries when they were short. Every time I said nothing when the rent was overdue and the fridge was full, because I had gone without. Over 30 years of quiet contributions. I didn't know you kept track, he said. I didn't, I replied, until you made me feel like I never did anything at all. He nodded slowly. Then, I deserved that. No, I said. You earned it. He sat on the bench by the window. I remember, he said softly, when you used to say, being a mother means making everything invisible so your child can believe life is effortless. You were 5, I said, and I believed you. We sat in silence. Then he asked, Is there any space left for me? Not in your apartment. In your life. I didn't answer right away. Instead, I walked to the cupboard, pulled out a second cup, poured tea, set it down in front of him. He looked at it like it was a key. I'm not your child anymore, he said. I think that's part of the problem. You were still treating me like one. And you were still expecting me to. He smiled, barely. I want to be better. You can be, I said, but not by saying it. He looked out the window. I lost everything. I sipped my tea. No, you lost what you didn't protect. He flinched a little, but nodded. When he stood to leave, I handed him back the notebook. Why? He asked. Because now you know what it cost, and I want you to keep remembering. He swallowed, then said, I'm sorry. I nodded. He walked to the door, turned once. I love you, Mum. I didn't say it back, not yet. But I didn't close the door behind him either. Sometimes the silence is enough. It's evening now. The kind of evening where the city hums low, like an old lullaby. Windows blink on one by one. Somewhere below, someone laughs. Somewhere above, someone plays a slow piano piece I don't recognize, but it feels familiar anyway. I sit on my balcony with a blanket over my knees and a sprig of basil in my tea. The air smells like warm concrete and spring. I don't miss the house. That surprises me. I thought I'd ache for its creaking floors, the rose bush by the gate, the patch of kitchen tile I never got around to fixing. But what I miss, and mourn, isn't the building. It's the woman I was inside it. The one who whispered gratitude while being erased. The one who said yes because saying no might feel like abandonment. She's gone now. What remains is steadier. Not harder, just clearer. This life isn't loud. No one claps for it. No one posts about it. But it's mine, fully. I wake up when I please. I eat what I crave. I rearrange my books without asking. I speak when I want. And I let silence stretch like a well-made bed. Sometimes I get postcards from Diane. She planted lavender in the backyard, left the kitchen curtains I sewed. She said, "The house feels kind, like someone loved it all the way through." I smiled when I read that. It's strange to be seen finally, not as someone who lingers, but someone who built. Lily writes too, little notes, sketches. One said, "Nana, I made your soup. Dad helped. We didn't burn it." Sometimes I write back, just a line or two. She doesn't ask to visit anymore. She says, "When you're ready." That matters more than she knows. As for Matt, he sends updates. No apologies, just reports. I started therapy. I'm taking more walks. I heard your favorite song today at the grocery store. I answer when I feel like it. Sometimes I don't. He hasn't earned full entry, but he's standing at the threshold, not demanding, not performing, just waiting. That's new. That's enough, for now. And me? I've begun writing again. Not letters, not lists, stories. Ones like this. Quiet, sharp, full of names that aren't real, but feelings that are. Stories for women who sat in rooms they paid for and still weren't allowed to speak. Stories for mothers who gave without question and were told they took too much. Stories that say, "You're not crazy, you're not ungrateful, you're not alone." Because you're not. Because I wasn't. And because somewhere, another woman is swallowing her last apology. To her, I say this: you don't have to scream. You don't have to beg. You don't have to ask anyone for a place at the table you built. You only have to stand, one foot, then the other, and walk away from what dimmed you, toward the life you forgot you deserved. I sit back. The lights across the city blink like slow applause, and for the first time in years, I don't feel tired. I feel home.